we'll be honest. When we first heard about a Flying Queen Xenomorph, we kinda thought it was a joke. Like really? As if the regular queen wasn't enough of a nightmare already, now she's got wings? But then we dug into the comics and there she was, in all of her majestic glory. Real, massive, airborne, and way more unhinged than anything we got in the films. And let me tell you, she's been around longer than most people think. While the standard queen needs a throne room, this one takes to the skies. The Flying Queen doesn't do quiet. She's mobile, aggressive, and looks like she was designed for war. So, in this marvelous video, we're going to walk you through where this winged monster came from, how she was designed, and why her anatomy is way different from the grounded queen we all saw in Aliens. Wings, arms, tail, crest, she's got it all and then some. So, if you thought you knew everything about xenomorphs, think again. Before we get too deep into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What exactly is the Flying Queen Xenomorph? How was she created? The Flying Queen Xenomorph is one of the weirdest, rarest, and most visually unusual looking variants to ever appear in the Alien franchise, and no, she's not from the main films. She shows up in Aliens Apocalypse, The Destroying Angels, a comic miniseries published by Dark Horse in the year 2000, which was always the experimental playground for alien lore. Nobody's got a confirmed backstory on how this queen came to be, but the theories are all kinds of crazy and kind of believable. One take is that she was the result of some genetic mutation at a Weyland-Yutani lab, the kind of off-the-books horror science the company's known for. This also fits with the rest of the arc, where we have mutated xenos, infected engineers, and any life forms that can be manipulated. The engineers, known for messing with DNA and creating the xenomorphs to use them as a biological weapon, most likely altered a regular queen strain to develop wings for faster hive expansion and more aggressive territory control. Another theory that floats is that a regular facehugger latched onto a giant bat-like animal and the mutation spiraled from there. Honestly, with this franchise, both options sound like something they might actually do. One thing that makes her completely different from the other queens is what she lays. Instead of your ordinary facehugger, her eggs hatch into flying facehuggers, which are basically winged parasites that make sure nowhere is safe, not even the sky. It's evolution with a grudge. So, while the Flying Queen does not become part of the bigger lore of the franchise, her design and concept have managed to leave a mark on die-hard fans of the franchise. And we know what you're wondering, is she officially part of the Alien canon? Well, that's up for debate. The comics live in that weird gray area, technically part of the expanded universe, but not always acknowledged by the films. But as far as the expanded universe goes, she's in, and fans have kept her alive in theories, art, and old-school debates about which version of the xenomorph is the deadliest. Where did she make her first entrance? The Flying Queen didn't hatch in a lab or sneak out of a hive, but she flapped her wings into existence on a toy shelf thanks to 90s toy madness. In 1992, Kenner launched the Aliens toy line and went full throttle with crazy redesigns and mashups. We had xenomorphs crossed with snakes, bulls, gorillas, scorpions, basically anything and everything. The Flying Queen Xenomorph came out of that chaos and was noticed instantly because it looked nothing like what we saw in the 1986 Aliens. But it was part of Kenner's glorious experiment in throwing xenohybrids at kids who probably weren't even supposed to be watching R-rated films in the first place. Weird move, but it happened, and a lot back then. So, the Flying Queen wasn't based on any films or comics at the time, but the figure sparked enough interest, thanks to her oversized bat wings and bizarre anatomy, to get some extra attention in expanded media. Now, she was definitely more than just plastic. The Flying Queen came bundled with her very own backstory, like a lot of Kenner's toys. That backstory was picked up on and turned into early 90s tie-in goodies featuring snappy little comics, catchy promotional blurbs, and some concept art for the never-made Operation Aliens cartoon. Oh, you won't believe it. They nearly made an Aliens cartoon for Saturday mornings. It's a weird world, we know. Soon after, the Alien Queen flew her way into comics. Her real story began to spread across various comic books like Aliens Armageddon and bits of Operation Aliens. Her most notable feature is in Aliens Space Marines, a short comic series with the Kenner figures, where each story centered around the new Xeno variants. Her next cameo was planned in Operation Aliens, but the animated series never quite made it to the screen. Scripts were written, designs were made, and merch was in development, including board games, shirts, and more action figures. The Flying Queen was part of that marketing push, showing up in various materials, even though the show never really got off the ground. Later on, she appeared in 2014's Aliens Armageddon, an arcade shooter where the Flying Queen showed up as a vicious boss in the game's final stages. This game had new xenotypes, the royal facehuggers, the six-legged flying drones, the brown drones, and among them was a winged queen. And it wasn't even a blink-and-you'll-miss-it cameo either. The Flying Queen fought like an angry pterodactyl loaded with acid, infesting an entire colony alongside other heavily mutated strains. While the game doesn't give her a backstory, her design and behavior closely resemble the OG toy version. So, the Flying Queen didn't walk out of a film set or a Ridley Scott storyboard. From her humble beginnings as a plastic figure, she clawed her way into comics, cartoons, and games one after another. Canon or not, in the extended Alien universe, the Flying Queen exists and refuses to stay dead in franchise memory. The kind of monster that grew out of pure imagination, a winged beast that was never meant to be subtle or grounded, and was freaky right from the jump. Is she canon or just a cool what if? Short answer, nope. The Flying Queen doesn't sit anywhere near the mainline Alien film canon. She's cool, creative, but not officially tied to the core story. That means she never shows up in the movies, is never mentioned in prequel lore like Prometheus or Alien Covenant, and has no mention in the official scripts, novelizations, or tie-in guides backed by 20th century studios. Her earliest roots trace back to the Kenner toy line, but the Flying Queen Xenomorph was never meant to sit at the big kids' table of alien movie lore. Even after she landed in comics like Alien Space Marines and made an appearance in the Aliens Armageddon arcade game, she still sits outside the main universe. While these were entertaining, none of them are considered part of the cinematic timeline. So, if you're asking whether the Flying Queen shares the same narrative universe as Ellen Ripley, the Nostromo, the USM Auriga, or the Engineers, no, she doesn't. Having said that, it doesn't mean she was a throwaway idea either. Strange hybrids and what-if designs have forever been a part of the Alien franchise, and the Flying Queen is part of that messy, glorious, off-the-rails corner of the Aliens universe where everything gets weirder, bigger, and deadlier. That said, her design left enough of a mark that she keeps showing up in games and fan conversations decades later. At the end of the day, she has no canon status, nor has the Ridley Scott stamp of approval, but the Flying Queen does have a legacy. The kind of legacy that lives on through dusty toy shelves, fan art, and quarter-eating arcade cabinets. She may not have a place in Ridley Scott's Xeno family tree, but in the hearts of fans who grew up with the weirdest alien merch, she flies high. How many different versions of the Flying Queen exist? Flying Queens weren't a one-and-done deal. Over the years, she's showed up in at least 3 different forms across the Aliens expanded universe, each one a bit tweaked, reimagined, and mutated depending on where she showed up, and none of them built to match. Same basic idea, Xeno Queen with wings, but the devil's in the details, and those details are freaky. The Space Marines version is the OG Flying Queen most people recognize, the one that came straight out of the Aliens toy line and the one who started it all. She had a shiny blue-black exoskeleton that was way flashier than the usual black or brown drones and warriors. It looked like it had been dipped in oil. The body was strong, sinewy, and her wings weren't insect-like or batty. They were thick, leathery, and veined, with claws at the tips stretched wide and full of holes. But she's not all wings. This queen had regular arms, 2 of them, like most Xenos. Her legs were long and ended in massive talons like a bird of prey, designed to grip onto something mid-air. And then there's her crown, or whatever you call the weird crest sprouting out of her carapace. It wasn't the smooth, fan-shaped head of a normal queen, but jagged, heavy, and shaped like twin axes protruding from her skull. It makes her look more like a weapon than a living thing. Her tail has evolved into a brutal weapon. It was long, thick, and ended in a sharp axe-like blade. Yes, an actual axe. Add that to the fact that she's swinging it around while airborne, and you've got a creature that's deadly from every angle. No lore came with the figure itself, but the design was enough to spark curiosity. She was marketed as a winged queen meant to lead airborne assaults on the Marines, which is pretty insane when you remember this toy line was technically for kids. So pretty much they went all in on the design, mean-looking, over-designed, and built to sell on shelves. Then came the Operation Aliens version. This version was darker, both in look and nature. The Flying Queen gets a whole new look, and it's jet black and deadly from head to toe, but she wasn't sleek and smooth like the usual Xenos. She was built rough, bulky, and ready to grab anything that moved. Her talons are the first thing that'll catch your eye. Big bird-like claws, almost like she was part vulture. Her wings were thinner, more membrane-heavy, kind of bat-like but twisted. They were strong, stretched tight, and kept her airborne. Her tail was different too. Instead of a whip or a blade, it was longer and snake-like, a thing with a fleshy and thin membrane. Not common for Xenos and way more corrupted. She had a solid pair of normal arms, which means she can grab, tear, or hold her prey in place, but she also has a second set of vestigial upper arms sticking out of her sides. Small, shriveled, and kinda useless, like leftovers from a failed mutation. And then you get to her head. The crown she wears isn't the wide, flat shape most queens carry. It had a row of blunted spikes running straight down its length and looked more like knobs or bone ridges fused into her skull. It gives her a sort of armored dinosaur look, old and mean, and built to crash through anything in her way. And with wings and talons like those, you're not safe on land or in the sky. The queen doesn't care where you run because she knows she'll hunt you down either way. In Aliens Armageddon, the Flying Queen has the most streamlined look. This version was all about presence. She still brings the same size and terror, but with a few sharp changes that set her apart, and not just visually. Physically, she still looks pretty close to the Operation Aliens version. Her wings stayed large, and the taloned feet were still there. But look closer, and the differences start to jump out. For starters, her arms were cut down, literally, which made her silhouette less cluttered. Everything was handled through her talons, wings, and whatever her tail decided to slice through. Speaking of which, gone is the bat-style membrane tail from her earlier form. This queen comes with the classic long-bladed Xeno tail, more refined than the chunky axe tail version and sharp enough to gut anyone standing in her way. Her head crest also got a bit of a redesign. Instead of the blunted ridges or spiked rows from older versions, this one was smooth. It was still massive and shaped like a queen's crown, but without the bone club look. It made her look cleaner, but she was still dangerous. In Armageddon, we see her going at it with other xenomorphs. There's a moment where she kills what looks like a standard queen or maybe a Praetorian, hard to say for sure since the visuals leave it a bit open-ended, so it could be a straight-up turf war between two alien factions. Or maybe this version of the Flying Queen doesn't recognize hive hierarchy and wipes out anything she sees as competition. That kind of aggression makes her feel more like a one-off mutation or a lab-bred weapon than part of any regular hive structure. Either way, she's not here to play nice. So at least 3 versions of the Flying Queen exist. Same nasty concept, 3 different executions. Across toys, comics, and games, the Flying Queen kept evolving like any good xenomorph, adapting to the tone of whatever weird corner of the franchise she landed in. Whether she's plastic, drawn, or pixelated, every version offered something different, and together, they show how far outside the box aliens could go when nobody was looking. Just how tough is the Flying Queen? In comparison to the normal Queen Xeno, the Flying Queen isn't weaker, she's just as powerful and can tear through armor with ease, toss vehicles around, and rip humans in two. But it's the way that she moves that makes her more lethal. While the standard Queen stomps the ground, the Flying Queen rules the sky. She can jump off buildings, glide across open areas, and run straight into her target from above, and then rocket back. In Aliens Armageddon, she had enough strength to wreck military dropships mid-flight, lift heavy objects, tail whip tanks, and punch through concrete. Her large armored wings aren't decorative but functional, and when she folds them, they act like shields. So, even grounded, she's not open for easy hits. Also, she's fast. Way faster than a regular queen, especially when in flight. Her mobility makes her unpredictable in a fight because she never stays put and attacks from angles that regular aliens can't reach. When you're in combat with the Flying Queen, you're never just watching your six, you're watching the sky, the walls, and even the rafters. Her strategic thinking is as brilliant as any queen's. Like other Xenos, the Flying Queen can spit acid, commands her hive, and picks targets. Instead of charging in head first, she waits, she circles, and then hits hard before vanishing into the darkness just as you're about to fire a second shot. All of that put together, and yeah, she's a major problem for any squad trying to hold a base. You're not fighting a queen, but an airborne war machine that's fearless, intelligent, and armed to the teeth. Dealing with this thing is no picnic. Marvelous verdict! So after digging through all this, we gotta say, the Flying Queen Xenomorph has officially earned a permanent spot in our mental list of things we absolutely never want to run into. I mean, as a kid, I grew up thinking the standard queen from Aliens was the peak of Xeno terror. But then here comes the flying version, and everything's changed. Basically, the Flying Queen is what happens when evolution decides the regular queen needs a little extra pizzazz to be truly terrifying. Oh, and we totally understand she's not technically canon by movie standards, but at this point, we couldn't care less. She deserves all the attention and then some, because in a franchise that's all about evolution, bioweapons, and things going horribly wrong, she fits right in. Honestly, now that we've seen what she can do, we kind of want her in a movie, properly done. Because let's face it, xenomorphs are scary, but one that can take to the skies? That's a whole new problem, and it's the kind of chaos that we live for.